how did the family respond to you calling cops on your brother because he got violent with you?
They were not happy.
You drinking wine has nothing to do with him getting violent. In a gendered conflict, it's always the woman who's at fault, and I hate that.
I was a single mom. I chose a different path to do life a different way.
I've never met anybody in my life who was a surrogate.
I mean, I met a surrogate. That's actually how it got introduced to me. She's dealt with domestic violence also.
Was it hard to give the baby away?
I think the days afterwards, going home, I did feel my body just took a little bit longer to connect with my mind.
Did you feel judged by the community, the family, for having a baby outside of wedlock?
Yes.
And one more thing in brown culture that I absolutely hate is like in Muslim families, if you say, I'm depressed, pray to God. Pray. And I'm like, depression has nothing to do with God.
Working on yourself, this is the best gift you could give other people.
Like, log kya kahenge, like what will people say, has ruined more households and dreams than you can imagine. Thank you so much for being here. I'm super happy to be speaking with you.
I'm excited too. And I'm glad we have this opportunity.
You have an extremely, extremely powerful story, Shabana. And I'm super glad to meet you because the first time I spoke with you, I felt like we connected on so many levels. Like I could just relate at so many levels. And for the people who are watching, would you like to introduce yourself really briefly? I would just say that before you take over, Shabana lives in California, Southern California. She has an extremely, extremely powerful story in that you were a surrogate, but there is a lot more to you. You've done a lot of work before that with family, with mindset, with healing. And would you like to take on from here and add something that's not on your social media and something that you'd like to share with the world?
Yes. So I was born and raised in Los Angeles, California. I'm a single mother of a 10-year-old boy. I've gone through a real big awakening with COVID and working in healthcare. Something I would love to share is I lost somebody very dear to my heart. I would say it's like my soulmate, and it kind of changed my life and how I view just family and how I view love, how I view meaning in areas in my life. And surrogacy was one thing that definitely helped me regain my identity and my journey on to bringing myself back to me instead of living for something else outside of me.
That is so ironic that you said that you went for surrogacy because it brought you into back into yourself and not living for something else. And that's ironic because it's really powerful. Like you essentially did something for someone else, but that brought you back into your own essence. So you became a surrogate long after you had had your own child.
Yes, my son was, when I started the journey takes about 18 months to 23 months, like fully, because it's a long, tedious process in the beginning. But my son was like 8 going to 9, so about 8 years. And I think he was at a point where he was mature enough to understand the basics of the process.
Right. And why did you choose to become a surrogate?
So, something at a very young age, I loved helping people. It could be from my grandmother, my nanny, my mom's mom. She was always offering help, even if she didn't have the time. I don't know if that was something, a habit she picked up from her childhood or from other adults around her. But she's taught me what unconditional love is. I have a really close bond with my grandmother. And I did surrogacy because I feel like we are all born with love, and then all these other things form from our experiences. So I feel I'm so passionate about love and helping others that I want to make sure I'm able to share what I have and make a difference and an impact in somebody else's life in a positive way. Especially, I've been on this journey of learning about emotions because I am raising a son and I wasn't taught feelings or emotions and how to deal with them and express them when I was younger, growing up in my family dynamic. Um, we just suppressed it. So when you do that, it kind of like comes up in other areas. But the reason my intention was to make a difference in somebody else's life and know that it's kind of like brought me back my faith in a higher power in the universe and the good in people. That um, I lead by example. That's something I learned being a single mom is like, my son's not going to continue to learn it for me telling him. It has to be me showing him. Like he has to see me do it. And I think that's really huge if we are trying to make a difference and an impact in society is to do it by example. Side note real quick, I love Michael Jackson and my favorite song is Man in the Mirror. So I always listen to that.
Right.
That will always make, when I feel like in a place where I'm lost, I look at it because I look in the mirror and it reflects back what I want to see. And that's what I want others to see. Okay.
I love Michael Jackson too. This is the biggest dilemma, ethical dilemma of my life, Michael Jackson, or one of the biggest, because I think there was nobody bigger in the music scene in the 80s and 90s than Michael Jackson. And I love 70s, 80s, 90s music.
Yeah.
And I believe music like that is not produced anymore.
Yeah.
And I like the song Don't Stop Till You Get Enough. That's
Yeah.
literally my life. Don't stop till you
Oh, I
get
love that
enough.
song.
I know.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a guilty pleasure because he did a lot of horrible things that we read about all the time. So I'm always thinking that ethical boundary. But it's interesting you mentioned that because I'm super happy that a woman mentioned that without flinching. Oh my god, I like Michael Jackson because it was so hard in the previous years to come out and say, by the way, I still like him, because of
Yeah.
all these ethical dilemmas that trailed. You learned emotions and that you were not taught feeling. And that brings me to the point, like before we get into the surrogacy, that you come from a South Asian background. Your parents are from, your family's
Fiji
from
Island.
Fiji. All right, sorry. Right. And did they move to the US? And did you move you were born and raised in LA, but did they move and tell you the stories or something? Like, was this like a central part of your upbringing?
Um,
Having an immigrant experience?
I would say no. I kind of was just thrown in the dark. Like I kind of had to learn on my own. My mom came when she was 16, so she finished high school here. Um, and my grandparents lived next door to me, so I went to their house a lot, especially when I just needed to get away. I'm the third girl. Um, I have two older sisters and a younger brother, and I was really close. I grew up in a close family with my mom's side of the family, so I have aunts, and I all learned a lot from them too. Um, but being in like it's kind of like learning fresh what American society is, and it's like something my parents didn't know, so it's like they didn't know what I needed, kind of that's how it went. So it just felt like I was lost finding my way.
Yeah. But the last time we talked, you also told me that you grew up in a highly religious
Mhm.
family.
Yeah.
And I feel like at some level, if you're a person of color, or if your parents have migrated from somewhere, they try to bring those values in
Mhm.
often, and they stick to those values
Oh yeah.
because it almost seems like if you don't stick to your identity that it could fall apart. Did you ever feel like there was this overcompensation?
Yes. I felt a lot of pressure growing up, a lot of pressure on having to perform in a certain way to be accepted and loved and conditioned. Like with my grandparents and my mom and dad, it's like you have to learn the religion and follow the rules and what the book tells you, the Quran, and live by that to be a good human or a good person. So that's where the conflict in my mindset I had growing up as a young child, which I'm highly also into psychology, and I read a book called The Whole Brain Child, and at a young age, that's very, very traumatizing and confusing for a minor to learn when you're growing. Is like you're learning how to be a human being and a person in this world, but then you're also learning your culture and religion and all of this. And as an adult, it also falls into a big umbrella. I've learned, and this is where the emotional and the feelings come in, is like control, power. I've never known about these words when I was younger. So to learn, it all ties into religion for me, in my opinion, and has taught me so much about that.
Right. And when you started your surrogacy, you said that your journey began somewhere around COVID. So surrogacy came a little later, I believe. But did this journey start with losing somebody very close to you?
Yes. So in 2019, right before COVID, my aunt, Yasmin, she was the first woman in her generation to divorce. She has two children, and it's my mom's sister, one beneath her. And so she was a single mom of two, divorcee in an Islam Indian culture. And that was very looked at in a negative light. Just out like something that, they didn't want her to do. She had a lot of influence, but she still followed her intuition, I believe. She followed her inner voice and went with what she knew was right for her life. The part that I had a time, I was a teenager around then when she got divorced. And I was very close to her. I lived with her during high school, and also with my son. But she, at a young age, as a teenager, I feel like I grew up so fast because I watched her. So her life, I feel like, is reflecting in mine, in my family, as far as me being different. I was a single mom. I chose a different path to do life a different way, not how we're told to do life. As far as growing up in an Indian culture, like, finish school, then get married, become a wife, have children, be a mom, clean. That's like the norm that we were brought up in. So she got diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma in August of 2019, and I was living with her at the time. Her daughter was in college. Her daughter was living in San Francisco for about 8 years. So she was close to her, but it was distant. So me and her bond was a lot closer at the time. But once she got diagnosed, her daughter moved in, and then I moved out to my nanny's house with my son, just because I didn't want to cause any conflict. I was always avoiding conflict. I love peace and harmony. But the cancer spread by December. That was August. By December, it did go to her brain. I kind of knew, me working in healthcare, I listened from what the doctors say, but her daughter, we had a really close relationship, but I think a lot of times growing up as the older, looked at as the older sibling, people like rely on you for the emotional support, and then it's hard for you to have somebody to carry your weight and have that balance, which is something I learned in relationships as growing up, having energy reciprocated in relationships, and having, knowing when somebody needs you more than they need you, kind of thing. So then January came. This was 2020, COVID. And then she passed away in July of 2020. Um, and then after that, I kind of just was like, where do I go for support and protection? I never felt protected, and I felt she was always my rock. And there, she was just my biggest support. I think we saw a lot a lot of the same characteristics in each other. Even though I was a lot younger than her, but we just, it's like, didn't have to explain. So when she passed, I went through a hard time and I didn't know what to do with all my feelings and how to grieve, never taught or didn't have the support I needed to grieve and mourn. Also trying to stay strong for my son. And then I remember I was living with my grandparents, they losing a child. I just know that's very traumatizing, and to have to bury your child. If I'm a mom, I'm like, I could only imagine. And me being so close to my grandmother, it was a lot. But I was there to support her, listen to her. Um, but then my brother moved in. We had a very dysfunctional family upbringing. As far as my sisters and my brothers, we were never taught how to build healthy relationships with our siblings. And that's something that I learned in therapy as far as family dynamics being toxic and what's not healthy. And if you don't know how to deal with our anger in a healthy way, that it could come out in ways that, in ugly ways that we don't want. So I did go through a domestic violence incident with my younger brother. At this time, we're in our 30s, but it happened in February of 2021, which was like 6 months after my aunt passed. And at the same time, me and my brother are living and caring for our elderly grandparents. So they're not fully there. They just lost a child. What trauma does to the brain definitely rewires stuff. So I know me and my brother we had we bumped heads a lot. So that changed my life because with that domestic violence issue, I had to make a decision that I know my family wouldn't approve of. It was the first time, and then my aunt wasn't there to support me because she was already
If
gone.
I may ask,
Yeah.
what exactly happened? How did this happen?
Um. So in our culture, as far as like men usually I feel like have that I've been grown up seeing in an Indian culture usually have the higher say. In my grandparents' generation, my grandfather was the power. He had the power. He worked. He,
The
took care of
patriarch.
the house. So whatever he said goes, and he had to shut my nanny down or my grandmother down. And I didn't like that. Me being the little girl, me was like, my Nani deserves to be spoken to in a kind way. She has a very gentle and soft heart. She is very loving and very accepting. And even if you don't like something she says, you could talk to her in a nice way or come back to her in a nicer way. Like we didn't learn how to deal with our frustrations or our irritations. So I protected my Nani a lot. And then my brother, one day, we were yelling. I did defer to this was hard for me, but with the pain that I felt with losing my aunt, I did defer. I had, started drinking wine a little bit here and there to numb.
This was after your aunt had died
Yeah.
already. Yeah.
So I'm still learning. Grief is all new. Like, what do I do? I'm still like I was going through the process, the grieving process, like accepting, denial, all of that, journaling, trying to figure it out. But um, after that, so my grandparents didn't like they were really religious about drinking wine and stuff like that. So I did drink wine, but and my brother got upset sometimes, and I did raise my voice a little bit to protect my nanny, like stop yelling at her to protect her. And that's where my brother came in. And I also had surgery recently at that time, a thyroid surgery. So I was just going through a lot, overwhelmed, and I felt like I had no one to help me. um, so then what happened was he started to call my aunts, and I just feel like nobody really knew the story except him and I. Him and I were the two adults in the house besides my grandparents, but they're elderly. So I looked at
All
it
right.
like we were in a courtroom, to just picture the situation. And it's his word against mine. And it was very aggressive as
So
far as like I ran
you and him had an
altercation.
altercation, and this was physically violent.
Yeah.
Wow, I'm so sorry. And then you
Yeah. It
called
was
the
hard.
cops and took it from there.
Yes, took a trip there.
How did the
Yeah.
family respond to you calling cops on your brother because he got violent with you in an Indian family or in
They
Indian
were not
culture?
happy. And they even made me look, they even looked at me also more in a negative light because I was drinking, but they didn't see the other side, the pain, the help that I needed, the support. I'm also raising a son. So it's, my son
But
was super.
honestly, like, you drinking wine has nothing to do with him getting violent.
Yeah.
Like, you could be consuming what you want, it's still not okay that he was violent. And that
Mm,
to me is so jarring because it's always like, but if you're the woman, then you're doing this, and somebody could be, this happens all the time in domestic violence cases between couples, like, oh, the wife was doing this or she did this, like, almost making a case as if she deserved it.
right.
And that's the feeling I got when you told me even the last time, and I was like, who cares if she was drinking wine? It's just wine.
Mm,
You could be drinking anything, you could be consuming anything, it still doesn't make it okay.
yeah. To make me feel unsafe in my body or just where I'm at, because that was a home. I was living there. So they just sided with him, like, you don't do that to family, like you don't send family to jail, I guess. But in my head, I'm thinking, like, you don't hurt family, you don't make them to a point where they're not themselves, or that where they're losing, who they are.
I am so proud of you that you called the cops on your brother. Who cares if he's your brother? I mean,
Yeah.
every person who goes to prison or goes to jail is somebody's brother, you know?
Yeah.
Everybody who harasses a woman is somebody's brother. So should we like stop, should we like stop holding people to account because they're somebody's brother or somebody's father or somebody's husband?
Right.
So this is really,
That was life turning for me. So that's the point where I'm like, okay, I hold people accountable now. I even hold my son, like, teaching a value in my son is being accountable for our actions no matter what. And we all make mistakes, but we do have a choice to make, and a
yeah,
decision of, everything has a consequence. So that
yeah.
was rough. I moved out for the first time after that situation with my son. So that was the positive thing that came from it. Me and my son started a journey. It was just him and I, living in our apartment.
How
And
old were you at the time when you did that, if I may ask?
I was 35, 34, 35. Yeah,
It's
first
so
time.
great, right? To be just
Yeah,
living on your own.
it felt, it was just a whole nother, I never felt like that in my life, because ever since my son was born, I didn't know if I could do it by myself. Like, my mom and dad supported me in the first couple years, and then my aunt, I lived with her, supported me. I also lived with my sister once. So it's like I just needed the help, because they say it takes a village, but you definitely have to have the village that truly, genuinely wants to help. After that, I just saw, like, a lot of change in my family. I grew up so close. It changed my whole definition on family, like who supports who. And it was kind of scary coming up, in a brown culture, like, with with the male and the female. Like, if the female's being abused, it's who they side with, like, in a situation.
Yeah.
So I just.
In Indian and Pakistani and generally brown culture or
Mhm.
Muslim culture, in a gendered conflict,
Yeah.
it's always the woman who's at fault. And I hate
Yeah.
that.
It's like a
And
default. Yeah.
actually, it's not even just brown culture, it's also in the West. We probably see it a lot less, but it's there.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
this is so infuriating.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with the fact that you were drinking wine. Like, it's not even it's not even a relevant detail in my
Mm.
opinion. You know what I
Mm.
mean?
Yeah.
You could be
Yeah.
drinking whatever, I don't know, I don't care. But this is so exciting, and then you decided to be a surrogate.
So then I got close to my friends, the ones that I had known for a long time, and I was at a party once, a daughter's birthday party, and I met another surrogate. I mean, I met a surrogate. That's actually how it got introduced to me. And she was a single mom, and she's done it twice. And she's dealt with domestic violence also. And when I heard her story, I was like, wow, you really bounced back and you came back even stronger. And she kind of inspired me. And I said, I want to learn more about this. Um, and then I went to a seminar at Surrogacy has like a third party agency. I went to a seminar, and it was just everything that I read and um, learned about, like meeting couples. And just my intention was going in with, if this is meant to be, it's gonna happen. Like I just went in. It's like a dating app thing where you have to meet a couple, and I was like, I want to meet somebody who I follow my gut, my instinct, and if they truly could see. And then when I met with the couple that I had the baby for, I really felt their energy and how grateful they were. And they've tried about 3 or 4 times prior to me. So that made me see like how much
Oh my
they
God.
really wanted this to come true. It's like they've been
So
trying.
I have so many questions.
Yeah.
First of all, I've never met anybody in my life who was a surrogate. Okay. So this is really sacred to me. And I'm so impressed that you think that I think this is the culmination of being helpful in this world. You cannot be more helpful. Like you practically can't be. And this is what I even said to you the last time. There's so many ways of helping somebody. Why surrogacy?
Mm, it was, I felt like it was creating love. I know my love is so pure and genuine. And it's like when I built the relationship and the connection with the divine and God with me, um, I feel like creating something bigger than myself was like, and giving it away, I had to learn. It taught me a lot about like the law of detachment. And that's something that I struggled with growing up. Attachment, even if it wasn't healthy attachment. So this kind of was like a journey for me to also learn how my inner strength and my inner like just world can show outward. And that's where I went in, like when I started therapy, just learning and all of that. So I was like, okay, a woman's body, we could do so much. It's transformable. We could go. I've struggled with body image growing up in a, Indian family, desi, and watching Bollywood movies. It's like
I
I
know.
went to other ways to deal with my feelings, with negative feelings, to cope. And I wasn't taught how to cope with my feelings in a healthy way, which is something I'm also grateful for now that I could teach my son, like when he's feeling lonely or when he's not, if he's disappointed, like how can we, what ways can we cope? That inspires me when people have that discipline. So this was
How do
something
you
that
do
just showed me.
that? What do you tell your son who's 10 when he's disappointed? What's this conversation like? Take me through it.
um, So first thing I say is you could be angry, you just can't be mean to other people. And this is how I'm all like, because I'm angry, and I've noticed a lot of people come to me and ask me, how do you deal with it? And this is not something I knew before. This is something I'm learning now. So I used to be ashamed of my anger, but now I'm building a better relationship with my anger. Is I learned this the other day. It's like I remember blowing up balloons in my apartment, and I stomped on one by accident, and it felt so good. So I said to myself, okay, when I'm angry, I want to do something that's going to make me release that anger, but in a healthy way and feels good.
Right.
So I just started popping balloons. I've heard of places here actually near me in Los Angeles where you could break glass or like even like smash a car with anger. And I didn't even know these places
Oh my God,
existed.
that sounds a bit violent.
Yeah, but to me, when I heard of it, I was like, if people knew that there are these tools and resources that can help us deal with our anger, it'll save less violence of people hurting each other, maybe, if they
Yeah.
knew what the world is open
Obviously,
to.
all of these things have to happen in a controlled environment, you
Yes.
know?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's something,
Wow.
when my son, he was like, oh, I could break this. I was like, yeah, if it's something that doesn't have value, you want to break it and release the, because all anger is just like love, anything. It's energy, abundance. Like all of these are just energies in our bodies that I believe, and you could release it.
Yeah. You decided to be a surrogate. And how did you have this conversation with your son?
Um, so me and my son, we because I'm the only adult parent and it's us two living in an apartment, it's very hard to hide things. I used to be, we grew up Muslim. I grew up with Ramadan and fasting, which learning about how women have their cycles and stuff. So this was nothing new to my son. He had to learn because I'm very, I think communication starts in the home. When you communicate into an understanding, like a basic knowledge with children, they can understand. So I explained to him what a cycle is. Once a month, mom gets a little bit angry, and you might see me burst out. It has nothing to do with you. And this comes back to books that I read about children's psychology because he does take when I lash out, he thinks it's to him. And it might not be yelling at him. It could be like, just like, sometimes I'll just yell like I'm in pain because I do have, I think it's called PMDD, where I get like a lot of mood swings and all of that premenstrual cycle. So he kind of knows, learning about that about women. And then I had to tell him that, I bought books on surrogacy, children's books, and teaching him that it's not, there's no DNA, there's no blood related to me and the baby. It is an embryo that's created by embryologists. Another new term for him, which was new for me too. I didn't even know. Like they use an egg from somebody else. The couple that I had the baby for is the same sex. Something that I'm so grateful. Like my son, he is so non-judgmental, and he just knows that love is love, and that's exactly what it is. It's
That's
how you give love.
amazing. How did he respond to that? This whole thing?
At first he was just like, two dads, like how, like what is that? And he was kind of like, he
Oh,
used
you
to
mean
teach.
the couple? He was like, they're
Yeah,
two dads. Okay.
yeah. But having the baby, he did think like, oh, am I gonna have a sibling? He's wanted a sibling. I know that I could not have another child. I just feel like, I think the perfectionism is me, in which I know that I still have that awareness where I can't be the perfect mom, but as long as I give my best, I'm gonna do great. But I feel like as raising a boy in this society, they have so many feelings and emotions, and if they're not aware of them, they don't know how they're releasing that into the world. So my son's very self-aware, and I love how he talks about his feelings and his emotions because I don't hear that from guys. So that's heavy on me because I do believe I'm an empath. So I have to preserve a lot because I'm like, okay, I'm listening to him. Um, but so his feeling was like, oh, am I going to have a sibling when you have the surrogacy? And I said, no, I'm having it to carry. It's kind of like baking a cake until the cake is done. And then when the cake's done, we give it to the baby's family.
Wow. I love that.
And he's like, well, do I get to meet the baby? Do I get to talk to him? I said, yeah. The agency that I worked with was so amazing. They just built a community of support where, we're building trust. We're building the foundation of connection outside of like knowing each other. It's like
Yeah.
having that trust in somebody. I mean, I'm
Hmm.
sure a lot of fears and things come up for both parties, the surrogate and the intended parents. But I met with the parents with my son. They even wanted to have like dates prior to the baby being born. So we went to like Dave and Buster's, which is like a Chuck E. Cheese, but for like video games and stuff. And we bonded over that. So the parents like hung out with my son and talked to him. And my son loved them because they're like two guys, like, oh, I'm around guys. So when he felt
Right.
comfortable around them, I think he felt more comfortable of me having their baby and giving them a gift. It was like a gift, and
Right.
he saw that.
But we talk a lot about in general in society what couples look for in a surrogate. We rarely consider what surrogates look for in a family or a couple. What did you look for in
I
a
like that question a
couple or
lot. I've never been
family?
asked that. I looked for just authentic, genuine souls that wanted something, really bad, and just somebody who communicated and had the emotional capacity to help me through it, especially because they are males. I went through roller coasters of emotions through the process. And they were very supportive and they checked in on me. Um, they actually valued me as a person. So somebody who just was very open and caring and supportive. They did a lot of that. Oh, and they were very funny. So, and I love that because I needed the laughs. I feel like laughing is the best medicine. So, through the process, especially the tedious parts of it, because there's a lot of like insurance stuff that goes into it, and then a lot of judgment. But I feel like they had all of that. Very kind hearts and souls. So,
Right. And did they take responsibility for you, like everything during that time, if you needed something to drive you to the hospital? How do those things work? Is it arrangement to arrangement, it varies, or how does it work, you know? Because at the end of the day, you're doing this for them. So how much of it are they responsible for and how much of it are you responsible for?
the the good part was the agency's kind of like the middleman in the process, so they helped a lot as far as they create like a bucket of where, if there's like co-pays and all this stuff for the doctor's appointments, they'll do. They showed up. They actually drove 2 hours away because they live 2 hours away from us to the important doctor's appointments. But I did have to take time off a few days to go to some of the appointments. But the parents showed up. They were there in the delivery room when I had the baby. They stayed the night in the hospital. They allowed them to. Um, and the agency kind of just coordinated a lot, though.
Right.
My responsibility through the process was to make sure I communicated and didn't, just was very open. And shared anything that had to do with the process with them, with my health and theirs, because there is a legal document, like you go through a legal process. You also go through a psychology assessment and all of that to see if you're, mentally stably just stable and all of that. So it's kind of like a very big process to like pick the person, and I think they saw that this is something that I was truly passionate about and ready to do. um, I feel like one of the values that stuck with me growing up that I believe family is about is loyalty, loyalty and trust, and those are values that I'm instilling in my son. Sorry, but this is going back to how my son took it. He asked me actually a couple nights ago, because I just had the 1 year anniversary. The baby I gave birth to turned one. Um, he said, "Is he family?" And then I asked my son, because he has such a curious mind. I said, "What is family to you?" I never got asked that question when I was a child. And that's something that till this day, I think a lot of people define in different ways of what family is. Because in my culture, in my upbringing, I was, instilled that family is only family, like blood, like family. But to me, family could be anybody that you, connect with and build that container of love, trust, relationship. They don't have to be related to you. They don't, any of that. You can make anybody family. And that's something that I think I didn't have the opportunity of learning and growing, when I was growing up, to believe, which can cause a lot of struggle too, because then you struggle. From my experience, struggling with intimate relationships as growing up, it was
Yeah.
really hard, and building strong, solid friendships.
Yeah, I know totally what you mean. I did a lot of work as well over there. And now that I realize I didn't go into therapy to learn how to form better relationships, but I definitely walked out of therapy learning that superpower. I didn't even realize I needed to learn it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it has something to do with upbringing and family or
Yeah.
the environment that I was
And what
raised
we're
in.
taught.
Yeah.
Words have power. And something I learned is like when you're told something in a I don't want to say like closed-minded home, but in a box when you're growing up as a
Yeah.
child, you absorb all of that and you believe it. But then as
Yeah.
you get older and you do the work, and you,
Yeah.
if you do go to therapy and you learn and you start having an open mind and hear other people's perspectives, you're like, wow, this isn't the only way you could think. You could think a different way.
Yeah. I've learned that you cannot have good friendships unless you can be vulnerable with people.
Yeah.
And that's true for intimate relationships, romantic relationships, any kind of relationship. And my challenge was to learn how to be vulnerable because I couldn't open up. I was avoidant attachment. So this
Mm-hmm.
is everything is like, oh my God, I'm enough for myself and I don't have to talk to anybody and I can bottle up, and bottling up is my superpower. And it
Mm-hmm.
was until it wasn't,
Yeah.
until my body told me, like, this is enough. Like,
Yeah.
can't store it anymore. So I think that's something that really helped me form better relationships, because once I could let my guard down, I just I was more interested in people because they were more interested in me,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
It's crazy what we learn because we don't think that's not what we know about it. Like, we don't see it unless we hear it from somebody else.
Yeah.
And I've gotten like a lot of aha moments going to therapy, especially going to therapy. It's like growing up in brown culture. My mom's like, "What is therapy? Therapy's like, not. It's not going to help you.
In
That's
brown
because
culture, going to
you,
therapy is like, are you sick? Are you
yeah, like,
crazy?
yeah. Are you do you, like, what's wrong with you? No, it's learning more about yourself. The only way
And one
this
more
could,
thing in brown culture that I absolutely hate is like in Muslim families, if you say, I'm depressed, pray to God. Pray. And I'm like,
oh my,
depression has nothing to do with God. Like, I'm sorry to
exactly. I
break it
watch
to
so
you.
many TikToks, and my nanny, I'm like, they don't see that as what depression is. And depression has so many facets. It's such a big umbrella. My son learns as depression is genetic. It could be passed on. I have depression, also anxiety. A lot of fear is put in. And these are things that, me being in healthcare, I've learned that lead to other issues, the gut health and all that. So that's why I'm very like about women's health and just well-being, mind, body, and soul, like nourishing all of it. Um, and I was gonna say that um, about the mental health and going to therapy. It's like working on yourself. I read this is the best gift you could give other people
I
because
know. Oh my
that,
God.
yeah,
I'm
it's
just
the
thinking
best.
if people before me would have worked on themselves, my
Yeah,
life would be a
it
bit
was
different.
exactly so.
I mean, I love my life. I love my life. It's
Yeah, it
beautiful.
makes you.
But maybe the journey would be different.
Yes, yeah.
No,
Same here.
absolutely.
Mhm. I was going to say that I don't regret anything that's happened in my life because I think it's made me and given me the strength that I needed
Yeah.
um, to go through the surrogacy process and allow myself to disconnect and detach when I did give birth. I still feel a huge connection to the baby. We have a good relationship, and I plan to be in his life because I know, living in America, and he's going to grow up one day. I don't know how challenging it will be for him, but I know that he'll want to know where he came from. And I'm open to being there and,
Right.
having a bond with him and talking to him about it.
This was going to be my next question. Was it hard to give the baby away?
Um, it wasn't as hard as I thought, but I think the days afterwards going home, I did feel a little like my body just took a little bit longer to connect with my mind because I'm very mentally strong to the point where I went in knowing that I'm going in without having a baby. So that wasn't the thing. It was more of just like my role in this journey is over for now. Like, I was the surrogate. That was my role. And I'm not a surrogate anymore in that journey. Um, but I am still the surrogate mom, meaning I carried him. There's all these terms that they use, labels, and that was the hard part, was just knowing that it was and I think I have a hard time when things come to an end, but it's teaching me about letting go. That's something I struggled with, but I'm learning.
Yeah.
about letting go.
So this is already like this is your life is your life is a complete antithesis of what we're told and taught as
The
brown
opposite.
women. And I love that. I mean, it's so radical. Like, I love that it's so radical. And you are so confident and so authentic about it. Like, you don't shy away from it. And I'm I'm so curious because honestly, I'm not sure what most people would do if they were in your situation. What I would do if I were in your situation. Have you ever been married?
No. So I'm currently working on a book. I wanted to share the name of the title. It's a memoir, and it's going to be called The Surrogate Heart, Giving Life and Rebuilding My Own. Again, that this was what inspired me to be a surrogate because it gave me the chance to rebuild my life on my terms. I felt my whole life was controlled by my caregivers and their outlook, and just being, I had to relearn a lot of stuff, unlearn and relearn all kinds of things. So I've never been married, but it is a desire of mine. I do have some fears around it only because bringing somebody into my life with my son would be a little bit hard. It would change the dynamic. So it wouldn't only be affecting me, but it'll affect him. And I don't want him to. I struggle with mom guilt, something that I go to therapy and I control, but it's always been there where I feel like I default sometimes to why he doesn't know his father. He's never met him, but he has a lot of positive male role models in his life. And I'm going to continue to make sure that's what he has. So I am very
Is he curious
hesitant.
about his
Huh?
father? Is he curious about his father?
Oh, yes. When he was younger, he asked a lot more, I would say from age 5 to 7, but he's 10. Here they offer a big brother program. So it's like a mentor, and he's built a relationship with a big brother. And they've been hanging out for 2 years now. And then him and my brother rekindled, and they have a relationship. So he has a few people in his life that he could trust, male figures, to see. I've also tried therapy with him too. He's not into it right now, but he's not against it because he sees me go through it. So I love the fact that he sees me, because there are times where kids are hesitant. They're like, what is therapy? It's the same thing. It's like, I don't know if it's an automatic thing. Like, people think they put a stereotype on therapies because you're not psychologically there, but it's the same thing as doing, um, like, I don't know, painting therapy or doing clay, or just, it's therapy is like reprogramming the neurons in your brain and just making you think different ways and seeing it from a different lens or perspective. He also said the same thing about tutoring. I didn't have that opportunity when I struggled as a teenager when I was going to school. I bring this up because society puts bubbles on like tutoring. Oh, you. I wonder if this is something ties into culture too. In our Indian brown cultures, like reputation. People look at, oh, what is auntie
Oh,
gonna think? What is Kala gonna
yeah.
think? What is
What
Dada
are
gonna think
people
if
gonna
you?
say? Like, I'm
Yeah,
not sure if you understand Hindi or Urdu,
yeah,
but there's this infamous phrase, log kya kahenge? What are people gonna
yeah.
say? And this is
The worst thing you could say.
the worst thing. Like,
Stop so many
but
dreams.
it's like log kya kahenge? Like, what will people say has ruined more households and dreams than you can imagine. You're totally
Exactly.
right.
Yeah.
And I've been through it. We all go through it.
Hmm.
And no matter how open or progressive by their own standards people think they are in South Asian communities,
Yeah.
they're not. Because they
Yeah.
always think, what will people say? What are we gonna tell people?
Hmm.
So my partner is from Germany, and he has a European name, and a lot of people asked me when I told them about him, is he gonna change his name? And this was a discussion in the family because people were like, but he should change his name because what are we going to tell people that he has a white name? And I'm like,
Well, he
yeah,
is. That's who he is.
That's who
You
he is.
accept
Like, that's
you
who he is.
accepted him, so they should accept him. I've experienced that so much, Coco. Like, I have two sisters, right? They both been married once prior to outside culture. One was Hispanic and the other one was no, he was Indian, my oldest sister's first husband. They've both been married once. And I feel like I've seen a lot of relationships growing up that weren't what I wanted and weren't healthy. So hearing your story and just knowing that it's possible gives me hope, and I love that. But I do believe that, that's the same thing. My sisters had to like, oh, you have to, is he going to convert? That's the first thing Nani said, when, if they're marrying a Hispanic or some, no, I don't want to change a person if I fell in love with their soul. That's my thought. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
why should somebody have to change their name or their identity because of love?
Yeah, no,
Because,
absolutely. And if you love them, you're not going to make them change their identity.
yeah.
But so this is interesting because I've always said this to people. Like, as I'm growing, I'm like, with age, I'm also becoming more practical and more pragmatic.
Mhm.
And I told my partner that, oh no, I don't want to be like, I don't want to, I don't want that you have to convert and you have to do this and you have to do that. And this was so ideological for me at the beginning. And then he said to me, but I'm not going to convert. This is just bureaucratic simplification. You know what I
Oh,
mean? And he's 7 years older than me. He's 6, 7 years older than me. And I was like, no, but this is so ideological. He's like, not for me. Not
yeah.
for me. I want to be with you. So what does it mean to be with you? Obviously, we don't need your family. We don't need anyone. We don't need my family. But at the end of the day, when your parents are they don't they let's say there is a time that they're not alive and you've had this really big thing with them
Mhm.
over a relationship, it's gonna hurt. And I want to have like peaceful decades in the future, not just 1 year or 2 years or 3 years.
Yeah.
I want to live my whole life with you. And this is like thinking next 50 years. So you need peace. And after meeting him, I realized that you need peace. And sometimes you do things for peace. So obviously, you can draw your boundary and tell people, okay, well, I want to include you in this. I want to do this for peace, but these are the non negotiables. And we're not going to negotiate on these things, you know?
I
And,
love
uh,
that.
and we started from a point where everything was a non negotiable. Trust me.
Mhm.
But everything is not an so
Yeah.
every it feels like everything is non-negotiable, but it's not like that.
Yeah.
You start tapering off and you're like, okay, this point I don't care, this I don't care, I don't care, I don't care, and at the end there's one or two things which are indeed non-negotiables, and that is the meaning of non-negotiable basically.
Yeah.
So I learned along the way that in order to have peace you have to give someone something and then they give you something, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't do it any other way because I have so much peace in my heart
Me
that
too.
for the next 30, 40, 50 years that we did everything right,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah.
And I remember when we first went to Pakistan to meet my parents and we came back and our friends were like, how was it? And then we told them, and this one friend of ours, he brought another friend or a partner or somebody. And he was like, yeah, you have to hear the story that they went to Pakistan together and what they did. And he
Mhm.
described it in these words, and his words stuck with me. He said something like, what they did was really love. They just really pulled this whole thing together because they
Yeah.
were in love, and they did this whole thing just because they want to be together and they want to have peace. And I was like, yeah, this is basically why we're doing all of this.
Yeah.
It's just for peace. And this is what I was gonna ask you. Like, you have never been married, but you have a son. And when you told your family, how did they take it? How did you establish peace? Like, was it hard? It must be really, really hard.
It was very hard. Okay, so the night that my sister, I was the first one to give my parents the title of grandparents, and then my grandparents, our great grandparents. I was the first one, and I didn't have the courage to do it at that time. My older sister did it. She went with me to the doctor. Um, I just remember, like, because my mom was, she cried. She was happy with happy tears. I think had all these thoughts and stuff that came up, but she didn't share anything. And we didn't have that connection. So it was very hard. But as we've grown, and now that my son's older, she has expressed it. So I'm grateful for that. But my dad said one thing that stuck with me and was not a positive thing. He said it's just Shabana and Elijah, which I knew my son's name. I was going to name him Elijah. I love that name from the Bible. But he just said that, and that stuck with me. And I had to go to therapy to learn that, because the voices of our parents usually can be in our heads, and we internalize it, and I internalize that a lot. So I think that's also has clothed my heart to love in some points, but I've grown from that, and surrogacy helped me open my heart more, and believe in being open to receive more abundance in all
Wow.
aspects of
Thank you
my
for
life.
sharing. It makes a lot of sense now, like the puzzle, like closing the heart
Yeah.
and then opening the heart
Yeah.
with surrogacy. Yeah.
Yeah. That's why the transformation, um, I hope my
This is
story in my
so
book.
mean. I'm so sorry that he said that. It's mean.
It's hard when you hear it from your own parents. It's just like you start internalizing, am I a failure because I did this? No. I may have made a mistake, but I still loved his dad, and Elijah knows, like, we just weren't right for each other.
But did
And
you
he
feel
wasn't ready to
judged?
have.
Did you feel
Huh?
judged by your parents? Did you feel
Yeah.
judged by the community, the family, for having
Yes.
a baby outside of wedlock?
Yes. Um, but then it's kind of like, this, it's really hard to share this, but I'm very open to, it's like, I've been told by the same people who judge me, you're the strongest one. And when I hear stuff like that, it makes me think the oppression that we've dealt with in our culture from women. They're so oppressed that I'm the one that gets to speak and use my voice and make sure that, what needs to be said is said, regardless of what men think and how men were taught to believe women are supposed to be this way and that way. So it's really hard. But again, my son recently, he's been asking, I wanted to talk about this now, is that I was like, oh, you were going to go on dates. I was like, yeah, I'm very open. But I want to definitely build a friendship. Um, because I've been betrayal, something that I feel like I've dealt with family growing up. It's hard to learn to trust. So somebody has to be very patient, and I believe in all that stuff that they say, love is kind, love is patient. And I have to be those things first. And that's what
Wow.
I'm hoping to reflect back in a partner that I find one day, I know.
Yeah. And how do you answer these questions that your son has about his father in a way that is honest and truthful, but also it doesn't alienate him and leave, like, in a way that doesn't leave scars? Is this something that you had to learn as a mother?
Yes, very much. Because I've gone through moments, like very uncomfortable conversations with him. I feel like he'll always have like a void. But that's where I'm I definitely leave room for him to come to me when he's ready to talk about it and ask questions. And I answer them in a very like kind and just transparent way, as far as letting him know, some people aren't ready and they make decisions that they feel they could handle. And when you're an adult, you have every right to reach out or do what you need to do if you need to one day. Um, and he does have, my son actually has siblings, half siblings. So
Oh,
he's aware
wow.
of that also. Um, he's the only son though. And my son's going to be 11 this year. So he's getting a lot older, and he's going to know one day he can reach out, and then that'll be up to his dad to answer those questions of why he couldn't be there. Um,
Are you in touch with his father?
No, we don't communicate. He's very verbally abusive, emotionally abusive, manipulative. But his mom, we do have, I wouldn't say relationship, but we do communicate around the holidays or sometimes. She's met him a couple times. I
Wow.
also, my son is half Puerto Rican. I want him to know his culture, so I do plan to take him there one day.
Great weather.
Yeah, you've been there?
I haven't, but it's on the list. We're always talking about going to Puerto Rico.
Oh, yes. So I definitely want him to know, and I know that his identity, he struggled with, I think, with me being the only parent. That's why I got him in therapy, was like Indian. Like, he didn't really like that I listened to like Indian music, but now he's slowly getting into it at this age, which is very interesting. Like, I buy, Indian dessert sometimes, and he loves ras malai.
Oh
That's
my
that was
god, Christoph, my partner, he loves rasmalai. He cannot
that's
stop
my
talking about
favorite.
it. I know. This is so uncanny because he was just saying, I want to have rasmalai every day when I go to Pakistan because I eat this once in a year. And I'm like,
And it's so authentic, I'm sure, in Pakistan. Like, I'm
it's
sure, like,
really great. It's really great. I think I'm gonna learn how to make it because we don't get it. So like we have to go to London or the US to get like really authentic rasmalai outside of
yeah.
Pakistan. We don't have that level. I think in Germany, but it's
Mm,
amazing that he likes it. He knows the right
yeah.
stuff from a young age.
Yes, and I'm grateful that he doesn't. Oh my God, he said Bismillah when he ate it, and I was all like, "Oh my gosh!" And I know he picked that up from my mom. So through the surrogacy, like, I just feel like I've learned to see the positive parts of our culture and stuff that I want to leave back. I feel like I'm all like, my ancestors would be happy to know that, you're how much you've grown through this process. And I'm like, sometimes I'm like, I can't believe it. It was not easy,
Hmm.
but it's something that's doable. And I'm hoping that I can inspire others too. That, and anything's possible.
You know, something I'm really curious about, and I've been thinking a lot about this, is that generally women are very nurturing.
Yeah.
Even women who decide not to have kids or they can't have kids for whatever reason,
Yeah.
they're caregivers, they're nurturers. And you've been through a journey where you've had your own child and you're a mother, and you've also been a surrogate, so you've also done it for someone else, so you kind of have perspective at a level most people probably don't. Do you think women are naturally inclined to become mothers? Do you think this is the greater purpose for a woman? This the highest form of nurturing? Because we have so many women coming forward who are making different choices. And I think I'm kind of on that journey where I don't feel this intense desire to have children, but I'm also like, yeah, maybe, like, I'm very whatever about it. And I'm not 24, you know? I mean, by now, like in my 30s, I would actually have more clarity. And I kind of do. But I'm always thinking that, am I going against nature if I'm making different choices? How do I know? Because I am a very nurturing person. I really am. But how is that nurturing supposed to manifest?
That is an amazing question. I truly used to think that, again, being in brown culture, like, women become wife, have children. You don't need to. I think you have to follow your intuition, be aligned with what you truly want, if it feels right. Um, my older sister does not have any kids, but my younger sister, I mean, the sister right underneath her, she has three. And then my brother's actually going to be a dad this year, which I'm excited about because he lives near me. So I get to be near my niece. And my son's excited too because he'll be able to help. But I don't believe women do have the nurturing, that in their mind and body, like, to do, but you could do that with, it could be a friend that needs nurturing. Like, it could be people, you could be a caregiver for, and this can happen in any time of your life. There's no timeline. Like, we're still in our, I'm in my 30s also. So like in my 40s, if a friend needs help now with the way where I'm in America, like I just found out one of my friends' brothers has cancer, and she is nurturing to him, and she has two kids. So it's like you don't have to be a mom to be nurturing, and you could leave your legacy in other ways, nurturing humankind, nurturing just people who need it. I think that. Um, and it could be even, you're like, honestly, you're nurturing my soul right now with these questions. You're like filling my cup, and I'm like, I love how curious you are and how self-aware you are, because that's what I've been on this journey, and I ask these questions too. And that's why sometimes I even have questions like, did I want to be a mom? But I know I did, because I love all the mothering parts of being a mom,
How
of
do you
getting.
know? How do you know if you want to be a mom? I'm thinking this, I've been on this journey for a while, and it's like one step forward, two steps back. How do you know for sure that you want to be a mom?
Doing the inner work and learning who I am, I was like, you know what I see in me, I'm seeing in my son, and he sees my generous, loving heart, and that's something I'll leave back, for him to leave the values that I was shown in his family. We've actually had conversations. I'm very supportive of my son and very open. Like if he changes his mind, and we have discussions. I grew up in a very, this comes up because when me being a mom, um, I never grew up with discussions in our home. I don't know if you did, but like we grew up with conflict, and like everything became a disagreement,
Everything
or
was a
like,
fight. Yeah.
yes, it should never be a fight. With two people have two different views on something, I
Yeah.
respect your view, but I can have a different
Oh
opinion.
no,
We
respecting the
weren't
view
taught
is not important in this culture.
that.
How can you let your guard down and surrender by
Yeah.
respecting someone's view? No, I'm just joking.
Yeah.
But
Exactly. And I know what you mean. So it's like, I know that what I'm leaving, I feel like I don't know if I'm going to have a daughter in law, but if I do, I just know that my son Elijah, he will pick somebody who is just as strong and confident and grounded, a powerful woman to leave a mark. Like women are meant to leave history. I really, truly believe that.
oh yeah, women run the world. They are the
Yes.
workforce.
Yes.
They do the nurturing. They
Yes.
give birth, which is also why I've been thinking like I'm so ambitious and I want to be so successful professionally, but I'm also always thinking like, is this my bigger calling, and am I missing the point, or am I like kind of misaligned if I miss this point? And a lot of people have kids in our culture because it's a rite of passage. You get married and then you have kids. And a lot of people rush into having children because they don't want to be, you know, risking it because the clock's ticking if you're a woman. And I
Mhm.
get that. I empathize. But how do you know before getting onto this journey if you really want to do it? Because once you are in it, there's no pulling back.
Yeah. One thing I could say, being a mom for 10 years, I'm going to say this, and I've read stuff about this. Don't have kids until you're ready, or if you want to have kids, don't have kids until you know that you've healed some of your childhood traumas and things, because otherwise you're just going to repeat a cycle. I'm reading a book right now called Breaking the Cycle of Generational Intergenerational Trauma, and I've already had the child. I had him when I was still traumatized at 27. Um but I am reading books and just making sure that this is where the pause comes in a lot in my life, because I pause before I make mistakes. We all have flaws. So there are, and I apologize to my son because I'm human, but I don't want to have him heal from a childhood like I had to. So I wouldn't recommend, my advice to anybody who wants to be a mom would be, don't have children unless you aren't know that you're able to be open and just raise a generation different than the way you were raised, because that world isn't here anymore. Like we have so many avenues and opportunities, Your ambition, we definitely are ambitious women, but you could do so much if you were to go that route.
Yeah. You know,
If you were to do that.
I was watching a video the other day, and this pops up on my Instagram a lot. This is this actor, female actor, Salma Hayek, right? And she was in an interview with somebody, and somebody asked her, and she's very, very successful. She's
Mhm.
so successful and she's so famous and she's done so well for herself professionally. Everything I want to do as well.
Yeah.
And then this person asks her, "Well, so what is your biggest achievement in life?" And she said, "This beautiful family that I've created." And it instantly like changed my thought process because I'm like, that's true. If you have a family, which includes a partner, or some people have kids, some don't, either way, whatever your family is, this could be your biological family, your chosen family, whatever.
Yeah.
But if it's a beautiful family that you've created where you don't leave traumas to the next generation or you don't scar the people,
Yeah.
it is a hell of an achievement.
That is an
That is a
amazing achievement.
huge achievement. So for a woman, but it makes it changed my perspective on the whole thing about becoming a nurturer and being a woman because it was coming from her, because it was coming from a woman who's done it all. You know, she was
Yeah.
not the person who said, "Oh, well, I went down this path because my mom told me that you're gonna grow up and have babies." This is
Yeah.
coming from a woman who made willful choices to
Yeah.
become who she wanted, and then she still said, "Yes, all of that is great, but my biggest achievement is this beautiful family I've created, this husband, these kids, this life." And I was like, it's true. And
Mhm.
then I realized that the background I'm coming from, all of this was so forced onto people that
Mhm.
you just stop seeing the value.
Yeah.
I hated marriage because I was like, I'm never gonna get married because women are not free anymore. It's like shackles. I'm never gonna do it. But the truth is that it's just because we grew up in an environment where it was like, this is your destiny and you are supposed to be someone's wife, and you grow up overnight, you become from a girl to a woman just because you just got married. And like, marriage has so much credit in our society, you're immediately more credible, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Mhm. Yeah.
So I feel like this is all rebellion. If we stop pushing people into these things, they might want to do this for themselves.
Exactly. Out of free will. That's the privilege that we have now. It should be free will, and when the time is right. Um, I definitely agree with that, though. Achievement as like building, they say happiness begins in your home. And I think the whole rebellion and all of this comes from us growing up in homes that we weren't safe in, where we couldn't do what be free with all our emotions, and we weren't seen, we weren't heard. I definitely wasn't as a child, but now that I've been on my own and being in my home is my safe place, literally. It's my peace now. And so is my son, because he sings in the shower. I never grew up singing in the shower. I'm like, that's a happy kid right there to sing in the shower.
I love
Like,
that.
I'm all like, okay. And I'm like, okay, should I tell him to stop? But I'm like, no, he's free. This is how it should be. In your home, you should be able to be free, because that's what you're rippling that effect out there in the world, where people should know that it's okay to have opinions, be free. But respect is something that I feel like has gone out the window, but there are people that can bring it back and show. It's just really hard these days.
Yeah.
But
You know,
yeah,
before we close, I know we're out
yeah,
of time. I'm
yeah,
just, so many women are single mothers these days and they are killing it. I believe it deep down that single women are better than single mothers do a better job probably than single fathers. It's just, I believe it. I know it. And but I never try to sell this like a compliment. Oh, you're so strong, because people
yeah.
who are strong, they don't want to be told that they're strong, and we touched upon that the last time. They
Mhm.
always need support. They can be
Yeah,
asked, what can we do for you?
yeah.
But you know, because you have the experience of being a single parent, do you think it's essential when a woman decides to have kids that she actually ensures that she has kids with a partner who can come through? Do you think this is overrated, underrated? How important do you think is making that
Very,
call?
very important. Another saying I've seen constantly pop up on my feed a few times, you don't have to pick the right, it's not about the person you're with, like who you married, but the person you have a child with makes a huge impact on humanity and the next generation. And what I mean by that, for example, my son, I have no regret in not fighting for his dad to be in his life, because I know he wouldn't have been a positive. He had a lot of trauma and things to heal on his own, that he wouldn't have been a positive male figure for my son to deal with his emotions and stuff, because my son would have modeled that. You have to, that's another advice I would give for future. I would have told my younger self, don't worry about who you marry. I mean, because marriages, it's, you have to find a partner that, if you have a child with that partner, if you're planning to have children, are you going to be okay with raising? Because raising children with a partner, I've done it on my own. Sometimes I actually do wish, because I'm a Libra and I'm like, I'm very undecisive, but I do, being the person who makes the decision, it can get very heavy. I wish I had a partner to make decisions with the child. I would love to hear other people's perspective, but on the parenting part, but you have to be with somebody who sees the values that you want to instill, and want to have the funness and just all of that, building a
Yeah.
family. Have you seen one of my favorite movies, also I want to share this, is Blended, with Adam Sandler, and
No, but I've heard about it. Blended.
it's a it relates to me, because I'm all like, okay, that's something that I would want, because it's just the values in that person that you have to have. Yeah.
No, I totally agree with you. I feel like the decision on whether to have kids for me went from I'll never have kids to, oh, I can consider when the right partner came along.
Yeah.
And that
I
really changed, actually, because I think it matters both, even for men. If they are with a woman who they cannot see a future with, and if they want to have kids and they feel like this woman may not be the best person to have a child with, has nothing to do with the woman who might be great otherwise. And it sounds a bit judgmental, but it's pragmatic and it's logistical, and it's
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 a
just,
personal choice.
yeah, it's a choice, and you have to feel, I feel like you have to feel comfortable. And I'm always curious, how do like single mothers think of that? So thank you for sharing that, because a lot of times people just go like, no, but you can do everything on your own. Yeah, yeah, sure, you can, but it's hard.
Yeah.
Like, there's no
Yeah.
glamorizing it.
No, there's not. It's very hard. It can be ugly too sometimes. That's why I said I'm human and I have flaws. But, and I even, me and my son have discussions about this. I hope that the partner that I do choose builds a friendship with my son and sees that he's a little human. So, yeah, but I have hope.
Thank you so much for being
Of
here.
course. I feel
This
so
was
honored
so
and grateful
nice.
for this conversation and connection with you.